Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to look at one of the most influential books ever written, but we're going to come at it from a totally different angle by asking one simple question about its opening lines.
So, a lot of us have probably heard these words from the Gospel of Luke. It's this super detailed account of the life of Jesus. But just listen to the tone for a second. This doesn't sound like just any old story, right? It sounds official, like a formal report that's been carefully investigated and dedicated to one very specific person, Theophilus.
And that one name, Theophilus, kicks off this huge historical mystery. Who was this guy? And this isn't just some trivia question, you know? The answer could fundamentally change how we read this entire incredibly famous book.
So, who was he? Well, over the centuries, a few main suspects have popped up. Let's run through the historical lineup, shall we?
And you can make a pretty good case for a few of these. Maybe he was a Roman official. Maybe Theophilus was just a symbolic name, since it means lover of God. But that last theory, wow, that one's the real game changer. It's the one we're going to dig into today. What if Luke was writing to a powerful Jewish high priest, the head of the very religious system he was challenging?
This theory gets even more specific. It identifies him as Theophilus ben Ananus. And get this, his father was Annas, and his brother-in-law was Caiaphas. If those names ring a bell, they should. They were the two high priests who presided over the trial of Jesus. So think about what that means. Luke isn't just writing a book here. He's basically submitting a formal case, almost like a legal brief, to the man at the absolute heart of religious power in Jerusalem.
To really get why this is so radical, we have to zoom out a bit. You know that 400-year gap between the Old and New Testaments? People sometimes call it the silent years, but trust me, it was anything but silent. It was a period of absolute chaos, foreign control, and a whole lot of religious corruption. And man, just like the old prophecies laid out, empires rose and fell, and it was brutal. First you had the Persians, then Alexander the Great and the Greeks rolled in, followed by a very short, very bloody shot at independence, and then finally, the Roman Empire took over everything. So, here's the crucial point. All this constant war and turmoil, what did it do? It corrupted the one thing that was supposed to be sacred, the priesthood. It stopped being about God and started being all about politics. It became an office you could buy and sell, a tool that empires used to control the people. I mean, just look at this history. You have a Greek king sacrificing a pig on the temple's holy altar, the ultimate insult. Then you have priests who lead a revolt, only for their own descendants to get corrupt and start actual civil wars. So by the time Jesus shows up on the scene, the priesthood was seen by a lot of people as completely broken and tangled up in politics.
Okay, so keeping all that messy history in mind, let's go back to the text of Luke's gospel. If he really was writing to a high priest, you'd expect the way he tells the story, the details he chose to include, would be specifically picked to resonate with, and more importantly, to challenge that one very powerful reader.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. A story that's just a miracle for us would land totally differently for a high priest like Theophilus. See, he was a Sadducee. His whole powerful sect, the guys in charge of the temple, they didn't believe in angels or in the resurrection. So when Luke starts his story with angels and ends it with a resurrection, well, that's not just storytelling. That's a direct counter-argument aimed right at his reader's core belief.
And it's not just the big theological ideas. Luke is almost obsessive about the small details of the law. He goes out of his way to tell you that Mary followed the purification rituals, that Jesus was circumcised on the 8th day, all these little things a priest would oversee. It's like he's building a case, brick by brick, saying, look, this man and his family were faultless according to your laws.
So what does this all add up to? When you start to pull all these different threads together, a whole new picture of this gospel starts to take shape.
The big takeaway here is that Luke isn't just a historian. He's acting more like a skilled investigator, or even a lawyer. He's presenting a formal, evidence-based argument, that orderly account he mentioned at the beginning, designed to convince the highest religious authority in the entire country that the case for Jesus was true, it was solid, and it fulfilled the law perfectly.
And that just changes everything, doesn't it? The Gospel of Luke is transformed from this passive historical story into a bold, direct, and courageous challenge to power. It's no longer just a story for everybody, it becomes a specific argument aimed at a specific man. And it really makes you wonder, what other stories that we think we know so well might change completely if we only knew exactly who they were written for?